Class is in session. How you doing, everybody? And welcome to Unlearn 16, the Christmas edition. For those not watching, you probably should go to YouTube and watch it right now because I have the perfect naughty Santa Claus hat that's, of course, tilted into the right a little bit. You should check out that visual. But here's the important part. And why am I wearing a Santa hat? Well, I'll tell you. Number one, I went to Mariah Carey last night, and it was like an expectation before she allowed you to enter the arena. I digress. Number two, I thought I've been doing this for a year and a half now, and I thought come Christmas time, maybe it's a time to return to my first podcast. And my first podcast was telling you my whys, telling you why I started this, how elements of my childhood and elements of my life have sort of brought me to this point and brought me to who I am today. And as I'm getting a little nostalgic about Christmas, wipe tear away. All these movies are playing, like you have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer over here, claymation. You have White Christmas over here, and that song. You have all of these different things going around me all the time, and I'm inundated. Mariah Carey last night transported me back for at least a half an hour to like 1991. So I'm going to tell you a few key Christmas whys. Why are they important? What happened in that Christmas? And I have props. So again, if you're just listening, this is a fun one to watch. But nonetheless, I will use my powers of words to describe the images or the things that I am holding. I'm going to go way back, and talk about some of the first Christmases I remember. Now, my parents got divorced when I was very young, or very much got separated when I was young. But that didn't stop us from having, and for me having, a significant memory of very lovely Christmases, to the point where this happened. My parents were separated. My dad had his own apartment, but he would come for Christmas Eve. He would stay up with me until I fell asleep. He would then go home, sleep at home, wake up in the morning, and be at the house before I woke up. Now, why he did that? I mean, I guess him and my mom were working through some stuff. He could have slept on the couch. But this was incredibly important, I think, in my headspace, and I didn't even know. Now, in these early years, you want to know what I got? I'm going to show you what I got, because this is important. I got something that I still have. I think I got this when I was 3 years old. For those of you looking at it, it's a Grover puppet. Look at that. Grover puppet circa, 1977, 1978, 9, I don't know. It's a look. He's very scraggled, worn out. He's been through it a lot. But I remember I got all of these puppets. All right. And I have a visual, and this is weird too, because when you smell things like this, you have that memory, right? And I go back to that time, and I was very much surrounded by gifts, and I felt surrounded by love, and whatever issues my mom and my dad had, whatever it was they were working through and they had to go through, as hard as it was, I didn't go through it necessarily with them. I know there's elements, and I've told stories before about how I would say things, but for the most part, a lot of my very cognizant memories are just of family, of love, of no disdain, of no animosity, no anger. And in those Christmas mornings, very, very early on, my dad was present, my mom was present, surrounded by all of the gifts. Sesame Street abounds. And I felt, and I still feel to this day, I feel love. I look back at those pictures and I feel love. I feel support. I feel all of those things. And it's not very tangible, right? I don't have like incredibly significant memories where I remember very particular things, but it's a feeling. It's a feeling you get. And when I think about that why, going to who I am today, oh, guys, it seems little, right? It does. It seems little. It seems like, well, sure, you could do that, or you could have spent Christmases separate, and you could have gone from your mom's to your dad's, or alternated. But my dad never made my mom do that. My dad never thought for a single second that I should spend Christmas without my mom. But here's the better part. He didn't think I should spend it without him either. So whatever it was that they had to put aside, they did. And they did it for me and for what I needed more in that moment. They're going to go on to co-parent with each other. Now, again, you guys have heard my podcast before. It's not like I didn't have, flaws with my relation with my dad and struggles and struggling to understand him and get at a deeper sense of who he was. But I never thought for a minute, I wasn't loved. I never thought for a minute that he wouldn't have moved whatever he had to move, shift whatever he needed to prioritize what I needed. And same with my mom. And so as I go through my younger years into my teen life, all of the most important moments of my life, guess who's there? Both of them. Both of them not begrudgingly, not with anger, not with animosity, but both of them with love focused on me and what was best for me. And then they made space to love each other, which I find astounding at some points because I know how hard being an adult now, we've all been through it. I know how hard being in a relationship and ending a relationship and how painful that is. And I don't think I could have done it as well as they did it. And even though my dad had left, I still think it was painful for him. This was a guy who showed up at every baseball game. He drove, now that I know where he lived compared to where I lived, he would drive 2 hours through traffic to be at the baseball game starting at 5:30 every single game. My mom would scorekeep. We'd all go out for dinner after. They were able to establish this incredibly healthy balance for me. Was it perfect? Of course not. Of course not. Did he get up at 4:30, 4 o'clock in the morning to ensure when I opened my eyes and I went down those stairs that both of my parents were ready to open up presents and spoil me and do all of those things with me? Yeah. Guys, that's significant. And that says so much about him. That says so much about her. And it's that kind of stability and that kind of, I guess, making sure you're prioritizing the kid in your life better than you prioritize you. And again, I don't know if I could do it. I think about what they did and I don't know if I could, but I thank them for it. And when I speak about this, and I speak about a lot of different instances when I was a kid, it was the fact that they could still parent together, not when I was at his house or her house, separately together. And my dad would put everything else aside to ensure that I was always with my mom and I was always with my dad for those important events. To the extreme, are you ready for this? I'm going to go one step further. My dad would come to my grandma's house on Christmas Eve. Guys, my grandma wasn't a big fan, especially in those early divorced years of my dad. But my dad would show up, and when I had to go to my dad's family's house, my mom would come with me. She would go into the same house that she was married into. She went with me to my dad's family's Christmas every year of my entire life until those grandparents had passed. Every single year. Do I think it was comfortable for her? No. Enjoyable? Probably not. But was my happiness and my comfort more important than all of those things? Yeah, that's how she prioritized, and that's how he prioritized. I think the value of that in who I've become is so incredibly foundational. And I look at those old pictures and the toys that I got and, those kind of memories that you have, Grover being just one of them. And I have nothing but joy and nothing but fond, happy, loving memories, guys. That's all kids need. Truly, that's all kids need. And I'm very, very, very thankful that those two people in my life were able to put aside everything else and give that to me. Was I spoiled? Yes, absolutely I was, for my listeners. Of course I was. But when you say, were you spoiled, I don't love the word because spoiled in title, it sort of gives a level of, like, let's say entitlement or animal, yeah, an entitlement. Like I was owed it and now I was this jerk of a kid. I never was. I think there's quite a bit of a difference between a child who gets a lot because their parents, and their extended family or whatever loves that. Let's be honest, my family's love language is gifts. And from a kid who doesn't respect it and isn't thankful for it, I think as an adult, that kind of gift giving and love and show of affection and just wanting to see joy of somebody else open up something that you know they're going to love. Well, I have that. I have that. I love to be able to find something and spend money on something that, especially, for example, Anna would never buy for herself. I love it. I love it. I love the fact that I can do that for her, and it brings me joy. I don't think material things are all that matter. That's not the point. The point is to put yourself out, put that person ahead of you and see that joy and find that perfect gift, right? And I think that probably comes from then as well. And I got that from both my parents. I got that from the love they both expressed, and they both loved buying gifts and all of that kind of stuff. But I think it's pretty important aspect of who I am, how I show love, how I feel confident in myself. I think that all matters. All right, my second why. Are you ready? All right, buckle in. For those, you know what? This isn't going to be for the faint of heart, because, like, let's be honest. In the 80s, I don't even know if I guess it was the early 80s. I'm trying to remember. This might have been a little later. I could get these gifts mixed up. I can't remember exactly what years they came out in. I'm sure you guys will correct me in my comments. But nonetheless, early 80s. Are you with me? Solid rock ballads, Total Eclipse of the Heart, Pat Benatar, that kind of thing. Was that Pat Benatar? You're going to correct me in the comments as well. Nonetheless, one of my best memories of Christmas was this. I used to live in a above and to the side in a century-old home, giant house above the only general store in Mansfield, Ontario. And in this home was my mom, me. We had like an area of the house. We both had bedrooms. We both had our own living room. My grandma, my grandpa, they had this huge room that had their dining room table, a living room set, their bedroom in with these huge vaulted ceilings. And my two uncles, Ray and John, who lived at the other end with their bedroom and another living room. And then downstairs, we had a living room and a kitchen and then the door out to the store. So I grew up with those guys. Once my parents got divorced, I grew up with Ray and John. They were brothers to me. They were 13, 14 years older than me. They tormented me. I had a black eye for a long time. It almost broke my orbital bone in the games of circus we would play, where I would ball up and they would shoot me with their feet down the hallway. Again, I digress. But Ray is my uncle. And you guys have heard me talk about him. He's more of a father than a brother. And I don't mean that to replace mine. I mean that to add to mine. And I think a lot of the times we think that we need to swap one out for the other. We've been conditioned to think of what family is supposed to be, when what family truly is or should be, is the ability to surround yourself by all these people who love you and that you love and that you want to share in triumphs and victories and handle them or take care of them through the hard times. That's what family is. So I was lucky enough to have a lot. All right. I had a lot of family. And Ray was one of the best. He was amazing at buying presents. He still is to this day. But he was great at clues and treasure maps to get to the present. Okay? Like, just amazing. The things seemed to last for hours. Okay? And as we were living up there, he'd done it a few times. So come Christmas time, I hadn't got a big, like, you always kind of get one big present. I hadn't got it yet. And I was looking around. And finally, Ray goes, "Hey, there's an envelope on the tree." So I pull out this envelope, and it's a scavenger hunt. Guys, if I could remember, you just wish your parents would have kept things like that, because it has such a lovely memory for me. You would have thought they would just keep those things, but nonetheless, she did. So he took me on this scavenger hunt, but felt like it lasted for 40 minutes, okay? I was young. Maybe I wasn't good at the clues yet. And I was all over the house. I was in the store. I was outside. I was everywhere. And I finally get to this room that he has. Now, my uncle used to be this huge comic book collector, like just an amazing collection. So he had this office space that was just his, and he would keep it locked. Coming up to Christmas, I just assumed they hid gifts in there. Hided. Yeah, that's the word I'm using. And this year, going all around the house, and I get the final clue. And it's walking into his comic book room. and I get the key and I unlock the door and I see sitting on his table my very own Commodore 64. Now, I don't know how old everybody is that listens to me. That's a replica, by the way. I bought this as a replica. You can attach it to your TV and you can play all the old games from Commodore 64 days. So for those listening, you have to understand this was the first gaming computer. There was Atari, there was Intellivision, but this was like an actual computer, Commodore 64. And the games were like the Olympic Games, Summer Games, Winter Games, California Games, all of that kind of stuff. And then there was a bunch of other stuff. Really, and just one day I should come on here and show you how bad the graphics are. But I was just in love, right? So you can imagine the story doesn't end there. You can imagine I want to sit down, I want to play. Now my grandma and grandpa have gone on and run the store, but my uncles and my mom follow me into this room. I'm like, can we turn it on? Can we play? And they all have this smile on their face. And I'm looking at them like, why are they grinning like something else is going to happen? We sit down. He has 3 seats ready to go. We all pick our players. We're all going to go. And as we start playing, they start to kick my ass. Now, I was young, so could they have just been that naturally good? Sure. But as we're playing and we get to the end of each event, we do the skating. I suck. And I see the scores, my mom, Ray, John. We do the, skiing. We do the moguls. We do the skeet shooting. Heaven help me on that one. And I get to the end and I'm just off the podium, decimated. These guys are racking up the scores and I see the top scores. Guys, I see the top scores. And what I see is that Mom, Ray, and John have these incredibly high scores on all the events. And I'm like, but you didn't get that high score right now. Of course they didn't. Want to know what they did, guys? Well, they bought that Commodore 64 at least 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas. Guess what they did every night when I went to sleep and they weren't asleep? They practiced. And then they practiced some more. And then they practiced some more after that, got all the top scores, and then walked me in like a lamb to the slaughter and for me to get decimated on this game. Now, here's my why. You think I'd be angry? Although I sound a little enraged now, don't I? You think I'd be frustrated? You think I'd want to cry? 7, 8 years old, getting demoed like that. Oh, no, boys and girls. I wanted to destroy them. So what did I do? Because they all have jobs. They all have school. I practiced and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced until my 7 or 8 or 9-year-old, however I had worked my way up to erasing all of their names off those top scoreboards. And when they stepped into the ring with me, I knew who was going to win. Now, why do I love that so much? I love that so much because I never had my mom, Ray, or John, for that matter, has never lost to me because I was a kid. They never threw the game. They never went easy. And this is the beauty of it. They pushed me. Now I realize I'm talking about a silly video game, but it's symbolic of everything else. They pushed me to excel. They very much treated me as an adult like that, in the sense that there was no reason that I couldn't practice and practice and practice and compete. There was no reason that I couldn't develop that kind of dexterity or understand the games and the tricks to the game. Of course I could. Of course I could. I had the capacity. It wasn't out of my league. And by them not giving in, when I won, I knew I won. When I accomplished something, I knew it had value and weight. Now, were my uncles a little bit more, let's say, big brother-ish in the fact that they had a great chirp game? They had a great, always in my ear. Oh, Joanna's going to screw this up. Oh, Joanna's going to screw this. Oh, you fell down. Yeah, they were a little more like that than, let's say, my mom. But that's the point. Right? That's the point. it drove me. And and that kind of competition coming from a source of family and love, like there's limits to that, right? I'm not talking about tormenting kids. I'm talking about understanding. I was able to learn and understand that at 7, 8, 9 years old, I was intelligent, I was capable, I could do so many things that adults could do. I could have adult conversations and arguments and debates. I could sit down and play video games. I could go outside and throw the ball. 'Cause my uncles also taught me that. I could do all of these things, and I didn't have to do them as though I was the little kid trailing behind. I could do them as a fully functional, yes, young person, but incredible little being. And I think that I think about that quite a lot actually. And I think the confidence when people ask, where do I get my seeming confidence from? And I say, well, I don't always have that confidence, but I say my mom, and I have to say my uncles, right? I have to say Ray, and it doesn't stop there because Ray pushed me in school. Ray, pushed me to excel. Ray never let when I thought I'd reached my pinnacle, he was always there to say, "Are you sure? I know you can do a bit better than that. I know you got that in you." And I think, and I might not be right, but I think part of that can be traced back to those days when I was so young, yet they never gave in, but they would sit with me and they would watch and they would help and they would push so that I could actually win. And that was powerful. That was powerful. Ray's a teacher, which is, I think, a big reason why I became a teacher. But even more so than that, what he gave me was this incredible sense of goal and aspiration to be better than yesterday. He's a physicist. He's an incredibly smart guy, a great artist. We have very different like paths in what moves us, what we're passionate about, and what we teach. But when I was young and I watched him teach physics, I was just like blown away. I was blown away at his wit and his humor and his intelligence. And the kids in physics will be on the edge of their seats wanting him to tell the next joke or explain the next theory or whatever it was he was doing. And I remember thinking, I just want that. I want kids and I want people to be able to connect like that and inspire like that. And yes, push them like he pushed me, right? Like he was able to push me and bolster more confidence, more competition, a, a work ethic. Ray has a 10 times better work ethic than I, but a work ethic rivaled by very very few people to be amazing at what we do and to do what we're passionate at. Ray could have done a lot of things in science. He chose to teach. That's admirable. I think that's where I first felt that. I think that's why I went in it. And again, it's in those moments, scavenger hunt to find out they've been cheating on me the entire week. It's in those moments that you get a sense of who you are and who you can be with that kind of support and that kind of push. It's very much, it's like support, 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 give it a shove. Support, 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 give it a smack on the nose so they know they're still not there yet. I kind of like that. I feel like I teach like that a little bit. Little bit. All right, you ready for my last one? My last one's a big one for those who are around in the 80s. So I think in 84, a very special product came out. And again, yeah, kids today will never know what this felt like, I don't think, because everything's online. You don't have to, right? But I think in 1984, the epic wave, the cultural onslaught, it changed everything. These are back in consumer days, consumer distributing catalogs. But in Christmas in 84, what came out? Cabbage Patch Kids. Now, whoever's listening that wasn't alive during that time or has no idea what I'm talking about, I can't describe the frenzy of like a One Direction, I guess a Harry Styles concert, coupled with the maybe a Justin concert, coupled with like an eruption, erupt. But they weren't listening to music, guys. They were battling each other to get into the Toys R Us, to get to the stack of Cabbage Patch Kids that have just been brought and within minutes gone. Bought, sold. Now this came out. My mom said to me, Joanna, do you want a Cabbage Patch Kid? I said, no, I'm too old for that. I'm such a moron. She goes, you sure? No. So she asked me like maybe a month or two before Christmas. A few weeks go by. Joanna, are you sure? Because if you want a Cabbage Patch Kid, you need to tell me because I can't. They're selling everywhere. I have to go figure out how to get one. Mom, I'm too old for Cabbage Patch Kids. Stop it right now. Pushed me a little bit again. Another week, another 2 weeks. No, until, heaven help me, folks. 2 weeks before Christmas, I say to my mom, I should have brought her on this podcast. I say to my mom, Mom, I want a Cabbage Patch Kid. She's like, Joanna, you can't. How am I going to get you one? I'm like, well, I don't know, but my mom's always got me everything I've ever wanted for Christmas. I have a big list. It goes. I go, you'll figure. You're good like that. You're magical like that. You know. And my mom's like, she's told me before, like she's just freaking out. She couldn't find one anywhere. So what did she do, guys? I wish I still had this or at least a picture of it. There was a lady who lived in Mansfield who made, I can't even describe it. Think of it like a homemade doll. And the head would have been like a pantyhose. And the body was soft, but it was bigger than a Cabbage Patch Kid. It's burned into my memory because I still, I got this because this was the only thing my mom could figure out to get me. And this lady had like ripped off Cabbage Patch sewn into the homemade sweater that the thing was wearing. Guys, I can still sometimes have nightmares about what this thing looked like. And it was big and it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And Christmas rolls around and I'm just like, opening presents. I get this present. My mom said, Joe, I couldn't get one for you. You told me too late. I couldn't get one. You see what all these people are crazy, right? All these people, you guys, if you can watch a YouTube video on the onslaught in a Toys R Us, I hazard you, watch it. And I'm upset. Like, I'm upset, guys. Is it all my fault? Yes, it is. Am I devastated? Absolutely, I am. And I'm looking around and I'm at that point, I thought I'd opened everything and I'm looking around and my aunt, Paula, my mom's sister, says, oh, there's one right back there for you. And I look around the corner and it's in the perfect shape. I don't know if you know the sort of weird kind of shape of a Cabbage Patch Kid box back in the day. And I saw it and tears puddled in my eye. And I went over, I grabbed it, I opened it up, and guys, for those not watching, again, you're missing out because I'm holding my very first Cabbage Patch Kid. His name is Armando. You can see him as very lovely orange hair. Smells exactly the way he has for the last, well, how long is this? He's 40 years old, at least. 40 years old. And I open Armando and I'm elated. Like, I am so happy. And I just think the heavens have opened, magic's ensued, and I've got this. And I didn't even really question any of it, to be honest. And then later I heard the story, and here's how the story goes. So my aunt worked at, and this was Christmas Eve, worked at the Royal Bank. And on Christmas Eve, she was working and getting ready to come to my girl, like early shift. And the bank manager had bought a whole bunch and had them delivered to the Royal Bank and said, anybody who wants to take one for their kids, I got them for you. It's like gift. And guys, I mean, some people want a bonus, but trust me, this Cabbage Patch Kid thing, insanely valuable. And everybody's going, do you want one? Do you want one? Paula, do you want one? Yeah, Paula, pick which one you want. Go get the perfect one. And she said, you know what? Joanna's going to love, as long as just get me one, she's going to love anything she gets. And I'm going to hold this up again, guys, because I'm telling you right now, this Armando, he has blue eyes, orange hair. What a weird combination. It was the best. It was like the perfect, till this day, I feel like he represents a lot of who I am. And it started this trend. Now, the funny part is, I don't know if it made me think, oh, I can have whatever I want. There was this newfound sense of like, I don't know, of magic. I thought it was magic. I really did. I thought the whole thing was magic, and that lasted me a very long time. That feeling of, of that kind of crazy Christmas and that kind of thing that I just thought it wasn't gonna come to pass. And then to know that, like, again, that's how a family works, right? Everybody talks about, well, a family is just this or just that. My mom, her sister, brothers, my grandma, my grandpa, that whole side of my family, guys, it just like moved heaven and hell to get whatever it is everybody needed or wanted and supported. And just, it was an incredible thing. And it started this trend of my family buying Cabbage Patch Kids. I should do a whole other podcast of showing you, because my total for Cabbage Patch Kids is 19. Why we stopped at 19, I'll never know. I should probably just even that out right about now, but they make them differently, as we all know, and nobody wants that. But here's why. So Armando, when I got him, because it was in this big, huge pile of Cabbage Patch Kids, and everybody decided they didn't want him, I guess. Might have been the orange hair, I don't know. Paula told us that story, and I immediately loved him more. But then my whole family loved that story. So every time anybody in my family was in a Toys R Us or a toy store and they saw Cabbage Patch Kids with a broken box, we would assume that Cabbage Patch, nobody was ever going to buy them. They'd want a perfect box. So we'd buy it. Guys, 19 Cabbage Patch Kids later, we just kept buying them. And the only way we ever bought it, we never bought a perfect box. We never did. We bought a Cabbage Patch could have been half pulled out of the thing. That's the one we want. I want that one. Now, I think it says something about my family. I think it says something about me. Maybe I need a little bit of therapy, but I'll tell you right now, I think the notion that people so easily discard things makes me understand their value and makes me believe that they were either meant for me or meant for somebody in my family. But I'm telling you right now, it's it'll go to pets. It will go to like anything people feel like it's just not good enough. I'm just going to throw it away. And all of a sudden, those are the things that I want. I think that says a lot about my personality. I really do. Leaving, just not thinking something's good enough for you. Not thinking it's not perfect enough for you. I guess that's what it is, right? This notion that it needs to be perfection in order for it to have value. And I just don't believe in that. I believe it's our imperfections. I believe it's the scar under your eye. I believe it's the bad haircut you got when you were 8. I believe it's the weird way you throw a ball but still manage to strike them out. I think all of the cool things that make people authentically, and I know I use that word 800 times, authentically themselves, and maybe makes people overlook them or look away from them or look around them because of that, those are the things that I want. So it made me believe in magic, but I think more importantly, it sort of set me on this path to understand that I don't need a perfection in a thing, but loving it and taking care of it, that we need. Oh, that we absolutely need. How dare you toss that aside? There's a whole, I guarantee, I actually put money on it. Every single Cabbage Patch Kid that went out in 1984 in that Royal Bank, I would love to know how many still have theirs. Because it mattered that much. I didn't keep all my toys, guys. I know it seems like I kept a lot, but I didn't. It mattered that much. It mattered that much because it, you know, and nobody else wanted it. Are you crazy? Well, I'm all in then. And I think those whys when it comes to Christmas, and then I sit around on Christmas Eve and listen to my mom and her sisters sing Sisters from White Christmas, Heaven Help Us. Or I watch, isn't that what Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is about? People overlooking things that aren't perfect? Obviously, that's what that's about. And it's like nobody ever learned the lesson. They all watched the movie and then never actually took it into account. I don't understand why they haven't, those Island of Misfit toys? They should have a whole line of them. Like a whole line of Misfit toys. Why haven't they done that? Why haven't they purposefully made, a train with square wheels? They should do that. A cowboy riding an ostrich. I like that too. Because again, it's in that authenticity and diversity and craziness that everything that is awesome about everybody, toys included, lives. And on that note, guys, thank you for going down my Christmas whys. Those are 3 big ones. I would love to know your Christmas whys. You want to put them in the comments? Maybe one gift or one magical moment that meant so much to you that you can go back and recount. And I will still come back next week before Christmas. Got one more before Christmas because I have another special Christmas one up for you next week. But until then, thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat station. Ho, ho, ho. Dismissed.